Okay, hi everybody. Just getting my chronometer in order here. Okay, and this is Treatise on White Magic, video commentary number 36. And we're starting with rule 5. Maybe a long one, not sure, haven't really looked at it completely. 3 things. It says, engage the solar angel before the sheath created passes downward. The condition of the waters, the safety of the one who thus creates, and steady contemplation. Thus are the heart, the throat, and eye allied for triple service. Okay, well, the solar angel infusing the egoic lotus as the angel of the presence is concerned with the astral body, the safety of the magician, and holding the mind on that which has to be done. But of course, what DK has been doing, really, is telling us more about the effect upon the disciple, rather than going through the mechanisms employed by the magician to ensure that his thought form is properly created. Maybe he will begin to do more of that, but a lot of it can be found in a treatise on cosmic fire, and I think that, he doesn't want to be repeating himself and rewriting what he's already written. So we're going to be dealing with the soul and its thought form. Yeah, again, you see. In one way, the man himself is the thought form of the soul. But from another point of view, the magician in touch with the soul creates a thought form which must pass downward. We're going to deal with the heart, the throat, and the eye, and the awakening of the centers. Okay. So the soul and its thought forms. And we are on page, 155, which I would like to remember when this program concludes. The soul and its thought forms. We have been dealing with the processes of creation as they concern one, the creator of a solar system or a planetary scheme. These are the large-scale creators, small in the great scheme of things, but large when compared to us. 2, the ego as it creates its body of manifestation. It should be here remembered that the entire human family has been brought into manifestation by a paralleling group of egos. It's not really capitalized. Often, this word is capitalized to indicate the solar angel. Let's just say that without the solar angel, man, as he exists in this round and on or in this chain, would not exist. We had animal man, but we didn't really have the human being, at least in Lemurian days, except for the work of the solar angel. It is true that apparently from an earlier system there were men who were present, and they were watchers, watchers of the process. And that's really an amazing thought, that they had been brought in from other places, and probably the previous solar system, moon chain humanity had not yet come to our globe in our chain and in the 4th round. That would be taking place in the 3rd subrace of the 4th root race, and that would be still yet a while millions of years, some millions of years, from the time of individualizing Earth-chain humanity. Okay, man as he creates those thought forms by which he expresses himself, through which he works, and by which he is surrounded. It should also be borne in mind that this definite creative work is only possible to one who functions on mental levels. Definite creative work, maybe incidental creation, is possible. The thinkers of the world and the disciples and the masters. So we are talking about white magicians or masters, but not the average emotionally polarized human being. Aha, okay. In every case, as we have seen, the objective form has been the result of meditation on the part of the creating agency. So, let's just say meditation before creation. This is the sequence, the order. It's been the result of meditation on the part of the creating agency, of response from the material acted upon by the force generated in meditation. So objective form starts with meditation, and then the response of the material that has been targeted by the product of meditation, thus producing the building of the form and its utilization through sound. Now that's actually an important hint, and one that we should keep in mind. The form is utilized through sound. And even now, it is often the case when we deal with our personality and with the environment in which we find ourselves and in which the form must act. This is succeeded by a stage wherein the form is seen objectively and becomes a vibrant, living entity. So, this is the magical work. Thus is the word, the sound, made flesh. Okay, so the word as sound is made flesh, and thus do all forms, universes, men, and souled thoughts come into being. So there is creation, there is force generated in meditation, because meditation must precede the act of creation. So really meditation comes first in the creative process, and a force is generated by this meditation, and this small form is directed through sound towards manifestation. So these are inner laws and rules. So there is a building of a form which is to take on more and more substance as it descends from the plane of mind. It's to take on a emotional sheath, astral sheath, to take on a etheric sheath, and finally to appear in the dense physical levels, and that's given in the final rules. So a vibrant living entity, well, even on the plane of ether, it could be called a vibrant living entity, and then it appears in full objectivity, either by the objective outer actions of a human being, or through the occult powers which makes it possible for the etherically vibrant living entity to simply appear. Okay, this fifth rule touches upon three factors which engage the attention of the creating agent. And we've seen, it can be a solar logos, a planetary logos, a soul, a man. So three factors which engage the attention of the creating agent before the physical form emerges into view on the exterior plane. Now remember, that emergence occurs either naturally through physical action or occultly through words of power and other occult methods. Okay, so what are the three factors? I'll just outline that so we know what we're talking about. In all these many words that are written by the Tibetan, it's not so rare to become a little lost. At least I occasionally do. Yeah. And I'm sure we've all had that experience. Excuse me. So these three factors are the condition of the waters, the safety of the one who thus creates, and steady contemplation. Note the danger of magic is beginning to be referenced. And DK talks about the magicians who have died along the way through neglecting part of the magical process or performing it inadequately. We will deal briefly with these three, and then we will consider the three factors which the disciple needs to relate if he ever aims to become an active and potent cooperator with hierarchy. So let's just say this is not only about becoming a white magician, but about even the possibility of really becoming active and potent in cooperation with hierarchy. And these are the eye, the heart, and the throat. We're really being introduced to important aspects of occult science here. The interpretation and significance of these rules can be carried forward along several lines. Well, that has become evident. We've been talking about what the soul creates is basically a human being, and what the man or magician creates is basically a thought form and something that emerges on the physical plane as an arrangement of energies effective along a given line. For our purposes, the one followed will be that relating to the disciple and his work, and we will deal with his training in the magical work of the ego, as that ego occupies and employs the physical form. So we're taking it down quite a bit and dealing with man, the disciple, as creator. This is our focus, though he has, as we've noticed, dealt with the soul as creator of man. These teachings are intended to be practical, which I guess means that we can do them, rather than simply theorize about them and say they're very interesting, but we can't touch them. These teachings are intended to be practical. They will emphasize the training and discipline of the disciple, and scattered throughout will be found hints and esoteric suggestions which, when followed, will lead the aspirant to experiment and to experience the truth. So let us simply say ways forward are given as hints, but perhaps we will not always be told that a hint is a hint. Now, oftentimes he does tell us this is a hint, but the new method that DK says will be employed by the modern disciple is the extraction from the mass of material that he may read of those indications which stand out for him as significant and pointing to the next possible step to be taken. Those who are not true aspirants will fail to recognize the hints and will thus be preserved from danger and premature experience. Now, the true aspirant is an initiate of the first degree. He says that in various places. All true aspirants have taken the first initiation, but sometimes you would wonder even whether the first degree would be sufficient to recognize some of the hints given here. Let us therefore take up the three factors which engage our attention, and let us consider them from the standpoint of the human being who is creating thought forms. Now here he's getting right into the subject, you know. And he did this a lot in Cosmic Fire, and not primarily from the standpoint of a solar creator, creating a solar system, or of an ego preparing to take incarnation through the medium of the form. At times, he has already done this, especially from the standpoint of the ego. I'm capitalizing it because it represents the higher consciousness within the causal body. That is the result of the presence within the causal body of the angel of the present solar angel. Two collateral thoughts are here of value. One is that the process of creating thought forms is part of the work done by every aspirant in the daily meditation process, you know, and let's just say largely under Saturn, the ruler of the throat center, and occasionally under Uranus. If the student would remember that every time he sits down to his morning meditation, he is learning to build and vitalize thought forms, his work might assume greater interest. Right. The tendency of most aspirants is to be occupied with their deficiencies in the work of meditation and their inability to control their minds, whereas both these aspects of their endeavor would be aided if they were to be occupied by the profoundly engrossing work of thought form building. Very interesting. He's giving us a hint as to how we can avoid preoccupation with our deficiencies and lack of control by substituting a subject of profound interest. Substitute a subject of profound interest. A hint. And that takes our attention away from the insufficiencies and from the possibility of even energizing the insufficiencies. A secondary and less important thought is that as egos preparing to take human bodies, let's see, a secondary and less important thought is that as egos preparing to take human bodies are deeply engaged in meditation work, it is highly improbable that they can be reached by the ordinary medium in the ordinary seance. So, you know, this is a cautionary tale. And shows limits. At the most, only those who have passed over quite recently can be thus contacted, and they are, in most cases, in a condition of deep abstraction of a different kind. So there's no time or purpose in enlarging upon this theme here, but it is of interest to those investigating these matters. There's so much going on in the seance room, and it's either filled with glamour or perhaps some of it is real, but he gives us a sense maybe of how rarely the ego involved or the person involved is really contacted. Okay, so now we come to the first of the three factors to be considered before there is actually an appearance on the outer plane, and that is the condition of the waters. The creating agency, we're focusing on man now, man as the mental creator and eventually as the white magician, has through the incentives of a coordinating purpose, intent meditation, and creative activity built the thought form, which he is ensouling with his own vitality and directing his will. So what creates a thought form? The incentives of a coordinating purpose, intent meditation, and creative activity. Well, maybe it's this way, that the purpose is the first ray or related to it, intent meditation the second, and creative activity to the third. So there's no other way really to build a thought form except through these three types of activity show us how to build a thought form. The time has come for that thought form to be sent on its mission and to carry out the purpose of its being. And as we know, there are different ways of sending. There are different ways of sending. Some are occult and some are simply the activity of the man on the physical plane. As we saw earlier, in the earlier rule, the form is driven from its creator by the power of the expulsive breath. Now, this is a hint. It is a physical act, but it aids the occult process. This is a symbolic statement, but at the same time, an experimental fact in the magical work. What's he doing? He is hinting to those who can see the hint to try it. Okay. All right, the occult process. Let me get back here to erase that. Right. In the disciple's work, there is often failure owing to his inability to understand both the esoteric and the literal significance of this expulsive breath. So he really is telling us there is an esoteric and literal significance as he carries forward his meditation work. This expulsive breath is the result of a preceding period of rhythmic breathing, paralleled by concentrated meditation work, and then a definite focusing of the attention and the breath as the purpose of the creative form is mentally defined, and finally the vitalizing of the thought form by its creator and its consequent energizing into independent life and activity. So we are to use both the literal, put them in order, esoteric and literal methods. And I'm assuming that with the esoteric method, a lot of internal continued concentration and energizing is necessary. The expulsive breath, however, is shown as significant. The expulsive breath, though physical, is shown as SGN, significant. All right, well, that requires a doing. Sig, nif. That ought to do it. All right, okay. As significant. Now, the first hindrance to the potency of the work comes through the failure of the disciple to carry on these activities simultaneously. Now, DK is always the necessity for simultaneity with regard to various acts. So we have here the sustaining of the purpose and its mental definition, and then, the sending forth of that sustained purpose. But of course, we will also be shown that it has to be emotionally motivated properly and etherically vitalized before it can really be sent forth on its mission. So the first hindrance, is the failure to do the required acts simultaneously. The second cause of failure lies in his neglecting to consider the condition of the waters or the state of the emotional substance into which his mental form must go, so gather to itself the matter of the astral plane, which will enable it to become a functioning entity on that plane. Now, that's a problem. And the form, basically he's told us elsewhere, the form can go astray and be improperly motivated and driven, even to the point of working evil, if not guarded. Okay, so the second cause of failure lies in his neglecting to consider his motivations, the condition of the waters, or the state of the emotional substance. Is it turbulent? That's a question. The condition of the waters, what are the motivations? The form can go astray. Okay, so it has to gather to itself the right kind of astral substance. This mental form must go and so gather to itself the matter of the astral plane, the correct type of matter. Okay. If it cannot do this, it simply becomes simply and eventually a dead form on the plane of mind, where it creates an unhealthy clutter and suffocation, an unhealthy clutter and suffocating effect, for it will lack that motivating power of desire which is necessary to carry it to completion on the physical plane. Of course, other people get so excited about a half-baked thought form that even though the motivating power is there, the thought form is too inchoate to do any good. Watch for the tendency to be highly motivated about an incomplete thought form. Then you have to say, well, I didn't think of that. Oh, I didn't think of that. Well, we have to think thoroughly and then energize the thought form with adequate desire for its manifestation, which means the right kind of astral matter. Of course, the form can go in either direction. I think by the time we reach Rule 7 or so, we see that possibility. It is interesting to remember this. If a thought form is sent forth into the emotional world to gather to itself a body of desire, which is the impelling force which produces all objectivity. Note that. This is, what desire is and does, and is immersed in a condition of the waters which can best be described as purely selfish, sort of rotating on its own axis. All that occurs is as follows. It is lost by being drawn into the astral body of the disciple, which is the focal point for all astral energies employed by the disciple. So I guess we're saying it never makes it onto the astral plane and towards true manifestation. It is swept into a vortex of which the individual astral body is the center and loses its separate existence, thus becomes non-effective. The simile of the whirlpool is of value here. Well, I guess also what we want to say is that the selfish astral body is like a vortex which does not release good into the world. The thinker is like a man throwing a toy boat from the shore into a stream of water. If he throws it into a whirlpool, it is sucked in time into the central vortex and so disappears. So, basically, selfishness is a whirlpool. Many forms thus constructed by an aspirant in his meditation work are lost and fail in their objective because of the chaotic and whirling state of the aspirant's emotional body, so hence the need for a calm condition of the waters. Thus, good intentions come to naught. Thus, good purpose and planned work for the masters fail to materialize because, as the thought form passes downward onto the plane of desire and emotion, it contacts only the seething waters of fear, of suspicion, a cause of glamour, we're told, of hatred, of vicious and purely physical desire. Not a very pleasant picture. These being more potent than the little form drown it, and it passes out of sight and out of existence, and the man becomes conscious of another abortive effort, and the sense failure builds up. Or again, well, in other words, there are a number of conditions of the waters which are inimical to the right equipping and right expression of the thought form over which one has perhaps labored long and hard. Of course, the opposite of this is one doesn't labor in thought very well, sends the thought form into the astral body, and the astral body is in such a condition that it can manifest this incomplete and fairly useless thought form, which if it reaches physical manifestation is not going to do much good, or maybe will do no good at all. Or again, the condition of the waters is not that of a self-engendered whirlpool, but more allied to that of a pool stirred into a frothy and boiling surge through the activities of others. Okay, we would then lack the proper insulation to protect the thought form. Now, there are many disciples. I guess, this is all about his experience. Experience has shown the teacher that there are many disciples who have achieved a fair measure of self-control and personal disinterestedness. They're not narcissistic, and they're not totally fixated upon the little personal self. Take your eyes off the little personal self, we are told. They are not the victims of personality desire and aims, and are comparatively free from the whirlpool of selfish tendencies, which just tend to emphasize the little personal self out of relation with the right types of relations which have to be established. But their astral bodies are again and again swept into a state of agitation by the group with which they work. The old saying reminds me, they say, what do they say? Let them say. DK has talked about that. They are elated or depressed, satisfied or dissatisfied by the results they achieve or fail to achieve. So we have to work without attachment to success or failure. Attachment to it, we note it, of course. This achievement or lack of achievement and the steadiness or disloyalties of their fellow servers produce agitation and emotional upset. And on this powerful reaction, their thought forms, constructed so diligently and prayerfully, come to naught. Their skill in action is lost because they are tied to the desired result, and so their labor produces nothing. Now I'm remembering, that skill in action, interestingly enough, was one of the words for Alice Bailey's formula, or DRS, SK, skill in action, was the S. All right, and maybe there were others there who had that, and certainly we could all use it. So the unsteady astral body is also a problem. Not just the selfish astral body. There are so many dangers here. Either danger to the magician that DK describes at a certain point, but also a danger to the creative process and the thought form, which, though it might be good, may not survive the downward journey towards manifestation. There are many other conditions of the waters which each aspirant can for himself supply. Let's just say the astral body is most often the vehicle out of alignment, or in a condition which thwarts true alignment between soul, mind, and brain. There is one, however, condition of the waters upon which I would like to touch, he says, and I guess, we can, each one of us, search out the condition of our astral body and kind of see, what is it? What is it that truly prevents the successful manifestation of that which we would create? You can think of these astrologically as an Aries type. Just a little piece of personal history here. I've sometimes been caught up in what's called ready, fire, aim. Okay, well, that's what they call going off half-cocked. You haven't really thought enough about what you're going to do, but the pressure and desire to do is so great that there you go, and you might have given your process more pre-meditation. And I suppose, maybe Taurus people might brood upon something, but never take proper action, and instability might be the problem with the Gemini type, the unstable mind which does not settle upon the thought form to be materialized. Fear might touch the Cancer type, and well, you could go around the zodiac and it wouldn't be too difficult to find out what are some of the problems which the zodiacal energy could present, or the ray energy, with the condition of the waters and with the general passing down of the thought form towards manifestation. We want to be successful in helping with the divine plan, but so often our energies and forces, not really well handled, get in the way. So he wants to touch upon another condition of the waters, the emotional body of the disciple, which must feed and nurture the baby thought form with its mental nucleus, is necessarily part of the planetary emotional form and hence vibrates in unison with that form, vibrating in unison with the planetary thought form. This should be carefully considered, for the emotional body is thrown into a state of activity by the general astral condition and must be handled wisely from that perspective. Oop. Right. So, there are surrounding astral conditions which may not belong to anyone particularly, but from which the disciple is not properly insulated. Sometimes you may have had the experience, why does this mood suddenly come upon me? Why does this elation suddenly come upon me? And there are ambient astral conditions to which we respond, and some of them may be inimical to the right development of the baby thought form. The drowning is always a problem, and even the magician can drown, as he tells us later, and a great hiatus being created between the mental body and the etheric body, which will lead to the death of the magician. No other possibility. At this time, there are three qualities predominating in the planetary astral planetary form: fear, expectancy, and a climaxing desire in the human family for material possession. Well, that's very interesting. With fear, it's a somewhat lunar state which has been, in a way, brought over from the moon chain and is deeply ingrained in the response of matter itself. It's certainly in the animal kingdom, and I don't know what kind of response we would see in the mineral or maybe more in the vegetable kingdom somehow, but certainly in the animal kingdom. Fear, expectancy, and a climaxing desire. This word climaxing is important. He says, note the word climaxing. The summation of human desire for material happiness has been reached. Now, it was out of control in Atlantis. That's what we're told. Out of control in Atlantis, where heights of, let's just say, where the seeking for luxury was out of all reasonable proportion. And some of this is inherited still from people, and oftentimes on the third ray, which is the ray involved in material accumulation, but in general, those people who are ruled by the personality which correlates with the third ray. And I don't mean only with the third ray personality. I mean the personality itself is correlated with the third ray in general. So the summation of human desire for material happiness has been reached. And this, happened, for sure after the war, which took away from many people much that they believed they had to have in order to be happy. And DK has told us how very little, really, we need to have in order to live a productive, happy life. So, and the peak of that desire has been passed. Thus, mankind has achieved and surmounted much. Even, maybe World War I was instrumental in wresting from the grasping hands of humanity so many of the material desires which were considered necessary. or at least that for which the material desires reached was considered necessary. But the rhythm of the ages is strong, and it goes all the way back to Atlantis, and he talks about these unbelievable heights of unnecessary luxury. So these three qualities have to be grasped and discounted by the aspirant as he seeks to serve from mental levels. Okay, what are they? Fear, expectancy, and desire for material possessions. Fear, expectancy, and desire for material possessions. You know the old saying, you can't take it with you. You can't take the material with you into the heaven worlds, but you can take faculty and quality with you, so it's rather futile to hold on to that which turns out to be eventually useless. So these three qualities have to be grasped and discounted by the aspirant as he seeks to serve from mental levels, and let's just say with that degree of detachment which service from mental levels allows. In the place of fear, he must substitute that peace which is the prerogative of those who live always in the light of the eternal. There is a power that can make all things new. It lives and moves in those who know the self is one. And then, oh gosh, what is it? Lives in the eternal. Show us like we seek. Show us the strong aim of the compassion and wisdom. There's a peace which passeth understanding. It abides in the hearts of those who live in the eternal. And that peace is here indicated. There is a peace. There is a peace which passeth understanding. It abides in the hearts of those who live in the eternal. So, rather than fear, peace, and perfect love casteth out all fear. So we can see how this works. We try to cultivate love, it casts out fear and induces in us the possibility of peace and the recognition of what the eternal really is. And do we live in the eternal? Do we live in this realization of the immortality of the soul, the beginningless, endless indestructibility of what we essentially are? Well, maybe on a good day, huh? Okay, so we have to cultivate this. Maybe crises demand of us at certain times that we really come forward with this cultivation in place. Okay, so instead of fear, in the place of fear, you must substitute peace. But how do we get to peace? And, I've made that suggestion. How do we get to peace? Love. How do we get to love? He says, contemplate love. Contemplate love. This is the best way to develop it. Contemplate love. And, meditate upon it. What is it? This is the way to develop it. Otherwise, without love, we're like, in the words of St. Paul, sounding brass. I've always felt that, from his major sixth ray, he moved on to the second, and then later, monadically, on to the fifth and first. Okay, in the place of questioning expectancy, he must substitute a placid, yet active assurance of the ultimate objective, which comes from a vision of the plan and his contact with other disciples and later with the master. This is wonderful stuff. Oh, goodness. I'm so thrilled with the simplicity of it, at least understand it. In the place of questioning expectancy, let's say, which can be agitating and disturbing, and unbalancing, he must substitute that placid, sounds peaceful, yet active. So there's a kind of a, what can we call it? It's like dynamic equilibrium. It's a dynamic placidity. Is that a contradiction? It seems to be. That placid yet active assurance of the ultimate objective. But he for whom the whole world waits has said that whatsoever shall be asked in his name and with faith in the result, assurance, will see it accomplished. So this is the word. It's not just vague hope. This is the word. Assurance, conviction, established belief to the point of conviction. Belief. Yeah, that's it. Okay. And his contact, it comes from the vision of the plan, so let that be cultivated through our meditation and study, and his contact with other disciples and later with the Master. Peace instead of fear, assurance instead of expectancy. It might happen, might not happen. What are the signs? Is it happening? Is it not? That worried, avoiding, let's just say, avoiding worried expectancy. And the desire for material possessions must be superseded by aspiration for those possessions, which are the joy of the soul, wisdom, love, and the power to serve. Looks like knowledge is turned into wisdom, huh? Oh, this is so good. So good. So simply put and so clear. And could we but perform accordingly? Peace, assurance, and right aspiration. I guess I'll make that really big. Peace, assurance, and right aspiration. Peace instead of fear, assurance instead of unstable expectancy, and right aspiration for the things of the soul rather than material aspiration for material possession or desire for material possession. These three words, when understood and experienced in the life of every day, will bring about that right condition of the waters which will ensure the survival of every thought form rightly engendered in meditation by the man functioning as a soul. Gives one real pause and, the invitation to self-reflection on whether peace has taken the place of fear and whether assurance has taken the place of that sort of unstable sense that something is coming, what can I do about it, I'm worried, and so forth, and right aspiration instead of material desire. Beautiful. Beautiful. And of course, one can appreciate these things, but will one do? Will one perform them? That is the question. And one had better, I must say, one had better. Now, we can just begin a little bit here before our hour is up. The safety of the one who thus creates. It might be said here with emphasis, even if it is a recognized truism, that people are frequently slain in the occult and therefore in the more important sense by their own thought forms. Ooh. That's a big statement. They may keep breathing and living vitally in the material sense, but they're dead. The thought forms have killed them. Thought creation through concentration and meditation is a potently dangerous matter. Goodness. Try to convince the average individual that this is the case, and it would seem laughable, but thoughts can attack you, thoughts can asphyxiate you, thoughts can hide the light, thoughts can interrupt circulation. This must never be forgotten. There are forms of thought unencumbered by desire matter which, failing to pass downward, poison the man on mental levels. They do this in two ways. One, by growing so potent on the mental plane that the man falls a victim to the thing he has created. This is the idée fixe of the psychiatrist, the obsession, which drives to lunacy, which is like a total disorganization and chaos, and the one-pointed line of thought which eventually terrorizes its creator. And he's relieved when the thought is not there, and he's terrorized when it comes for him, as it were. So let's put this in as two types of poisoning of the individual by thought forms. So he's brooded upon this, and it just doesn't go down, and it stays on the mental level, and there creates a condition of terror and blocks out all other possible thought. And now we have the sorcerer's apprentice. The second way that the poisoning occurs, this is the sorcerer's apprentice, sorcerers, there it is, that the mental aura of the man becomes like unto a thick and dense cloud through which the light of the soul must fail to penetrate, and through which the love of human beings, the lovely and beautiful and comforting activities of nature and of life in the three worlds equally fail to pierce. Well, overproductivity of thought that does nothing. And watch out, Ray 3. The man is smothered, and Ray 3 rules the lungs too, doesn't it? The man is smothered or is suffocated by his own thought forms and succumbs to the miasma which he himself has engendered. So this is about the question of safety and how to deal with thought forms, which he tells us is a dangerous matter. Or there are lines of thought which draw forth from the emotional body a reaction of a poisonous nature. People brood long and hard and then become hateful. A certain line of thought is followed by a human being in relation to his brethren. It breeds hatred, jealousy, and envy, and works through into manifestation in such a manner that it produces those physical activities which cause the death of their creator or the death of others. DK has talked about the brooding upon certain types of thought. Interestingly, the second, fourth, and sixth ray do this. The first and fifth ray make themselves untouchable, and the third and seventh ray become sort of maniacal, and they only think of one type of thought, which they are, or is it third and sixth ray? I know the third ray is involved, where they try to convince others of their point of view and force the case. But let's just say that we've reached the point now where we're at the end of a treatise on white magic, video commentary number 36, rule 5.1, and this time I'm going to remember page 155 to 163. And now we have the beginning of Treatise on White Magic video commentary, number 37, rule 5.2, beginning with page 163. We'll repeat this about drawing forth a line of thought which draws forth from the emotional body a poisonous reaction which destroys the creator and others. We have to be so careful about what we think and what we nurture in the world of thought. We have to be very careful about what we, as it were, tell ourselves. Okay, we'll be moving on and see you soon. All the best.